Can it be that it was all so simple then? Or has time rewritten every line? If we had the chance to do it all again, tell me, would we? Could we? Yes, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're going back in time to rewrite every line and go through every single one of these episodes of Sex and the City, the series, episode by episode, one by one, year by year. And here we are. We are at the final episode of season 2, number 18, X and the City. And yes, The Way We Were, Memories is one of the songs, the only song that's in this episode. And it's very poignant, which is why I opened it up with that. Because I know how much you all love my singing. This one was written by Michael Patrick King. It taps off the year 1999. And then as we go into the new year for 2000, you'll have my retrospective of the year 2000 with the opening of the first episode of Sex and the City, the year 2000, season 3. So I hope that you all stay tuned, and you're glad that you're the ones who are following me, and welcome. My name is Lena. For all my OGs, thank you for staying with me throughout this journey. And for my new subs, I hope that you're enjoying this and you've had a chance to go through season 1 and you're tapping this off with season 2, because before the new year, we're going to open up with the year 2000, as I noted. So this is going to be a little bit different format. I am not going to go line by line because I want everybody to stay engaged. So I'm going to give you somewhat of a retrospective epilogue mixed into what's happening in this episode. So I hope you guys like the new format, and let me know if you enjoying this better than me going exactly line by line, scene by scene. I love doing it that way too, because it helps with the memory and it engages everyone, but we want to make sure that we are really delving into the psychology, because this one was an interesting one for me. Because as I have reviewed this so many times, we watched it, not reviewed it. This is my first time reviewing on YouTube. We watched this so many times, like so many of us have. This time it struck me a little bit different. And let's go through why. This is about how the ladies, and in general, us people, react with our exes. How do we, as Carrie narrates, is it possible to stay friends with an ex? Now, I personally come from different beliefs, it depending on certain factors. How did you break up? What was the breakup entail? What were your feelings when you guys broke up? Was it mutual? Did it phase out? We have already gone through the possibility of you dating someone for a while, not really connecting on any other level than sex, and then becoming your F buddy. That was addressed in this series, and actually this season. There are different ones that, you guys mutually decided that it's over and you can stay friends because you were better off as friends to begin with. And before social media, let's look at the 1999 version. You kind of like stayed in touch, but it wasn't an active, way of, we're going to go out, we're going to hang out, I'm going to meet his friends, I'm going to meet his new girlfriend, he's going to meet your boyfriend. There are relationships that end up that way, that they become friends to that level. But it's one of those kind of friendly breakups that you have a mutual understanding that you're not going to bash them to your friends, and now social media. You'll stay in touch with them. You'll remember their birthday, or you acknowledge their existence when they're walking down the street. Or, in the social media times, you friend them on Facebook and Instagram and all the other freaking paraphernalias that we have now. You like their pictures and you kind of slightly communicate, but it's not something that you actively work on having a relationship, because it was just one of those kind of breakups in that relationship that you decided that, hey, being friends at a distance works. And then there's the other level of being friends that are close, that they become an active member of your life. They are invited to your parties. You actively text them and wish them whatever holiday, birthday, want to go out for a Sunday walk, brunch kind of thing. I have only one person that I've ever done that with. but that's because the breakup was mutual and we both decided that we enjoyed each other's company enough and it was not an F buddy situation. And I am still a participant in his life and we're very happy separated, but knowing that I still know about his kids, his marriage, his family, things like that, and vice versa. It's just one of those kind of weird things that you kind of had some passion, but it just didn't work out. Then there are the ones that the soul crushing, the ones that you accidentally try to run into on purpose because you know exactly where all their favorite places are and you pretend that you just ran into them. The ones that you still have the question in your mind, why wasn't it me? Why did you choose someone else? Why did you leave me? Why did you cheat on me? Why did you hurt me? You know, it wasn't a mutual breakup. You kind of had to deal with the fact that A, B, C, and D that I just mentioned was the inevitable path of the situation. And you still carry those feelings. So you actively check them online. Now that we have the internets and all the other stuff that we do, you wanna get that resolve. You want to have that closure. And even when you get that closure, it's still not enough because you haven't dealt with the feelings of why wasn't it me? And that's where Carrie falls into. Okay. So as she tries to figure out, can you stay friends with an ex? Which, like I said, it depends on the situation. We have the one that can't deal with ex-boyfriends, which is Miranda. When she sees Steve in the street as she's gingerly buying flowers, she does what most people do is freak out, run away, and doesn't want to face him. Why? Because it's one of those relationships that broke up, but there were feelings involved on both ends, and they never really had that final goodbye. It was just one of those things that it just broke up, and you can't deal with that person. To, I can totally understand that. Then we have the one that Samantha believes, which is her arc in this story, where women are for friendship, men are for effing. So she's never had a male friend. She's always had female friends, and she uses men to be her effing tool. I have not met any woman that has done that, but because of Samantha and her way that they write her, I could imagine there are a lot of women and a lot of men who feel that way too, which is completely understandable. And then in this episode, Charlotte doesn't really have a full fledgling storyline. All she contributed in the diner scene when these women are trying to figure out what is the level of friendship that they need to be in is that she believes that friendship is part of the relationship. So if they break up, they don't get her friendship. Fine, I guess, but they tried to incorporate Charlotte in a storyline. But what I realized is that she was more of a catalyst for all the metaphors of her issue with her horse, which we'll get into in a few seconds. So as they're in the diner speaking about these different scenarios, Carrie is in the belief that when you are broken up with someone, where does the love go? And again, it depends on what kind of love we're talking about here. And, as per what Samantha says, it goes to the next girlfriend. And Carrie is in denial about that. She doesn't believe that the relationship she had with Big is the same relationship as he has with Natasha. And how do we justify these things in our mind? One of the things that Miranda brings up, oh, you're not calling her the idiot stick figure with no soul anymore. Now, we do that as people, not just women. We call them names. We pretend that, they're idiots because we have not dealt with the breakup properly. So it's easier to transfer that anger to someone that you don't know or know what the relationship is about and believe that your relationship with that person was the best thing in the world and that whole thing was a departure and they cannot have that same passion and love with the existing person because that was only reserved for you. That is how we think we're going to go into this. So she believes that she should stay friends with Big because if you're able to keep old outfits and you throw away men, why do we do that? Because an outfit is the same thing as a man in her mind because it's all about fashion. You crazy person. So as she is pondering how to resolve the riddle of the Sphinx to stay with your ex-boyfriend as a friend, we are introduced to one particular issue, which is how does how does Miranda deal with her ex? Now, I laugh because one thing that we talk about, is when the two of you did not mutually break up on the same footing and you both still harbor feelings for each other. Steve shows up at her apartment in the middle of the day to let her know that what she did by running away when she saw him was a real shitty thing to do. Now, ulterior motive, an ex, whether it's male or female, you're showing up at somebody's apartment to let them know that they running away was a shitty thing instead of calling them or maybe finding a way to engage with them in any other way. There's an ulterior motive to that. Because as he's speaking to her, he says to her, "It's me, Miranda. I held your head when you were sleeping." AKA bring in the emotional anchor that is going to allow her to feel the feelings that she's been hiding and to show that you still have feelings or you remember the good times. So she feels bad about running away. And he's like, well, I feel bad about showing up here and calling you a shitty person when you're really not. Mm-hmm. And that, just because we didn't make it as a couple, why can't we be friends? Do you want to go out Saturday night? And she's like, there are days that I think about you and I miss you and I want to call. And he's like, well, then call, you know, honey, your ex is showing up at your door and giving you all of this nonsense. There's one thing he wants, definitely, is to not just have closure, it's to get into bed with you. Let's be realistic. And that goes for the women too. When you do that, it's because you want whatever it is you want. It could be closure, but you want that last hurrah too. Let's be real, okay? You want to know, is there any way this is going to work out again? I'm sorry, but hey, I've done it. There is no reason why Steve would show up at someone's house or your ex, knock on your door in the middle of the day, middle of the night, middle of your job, and tell you all these emotional clickbaity things just because he wants to take you out and hang out and be friends. That's not what friends do. So as she says that, she has a date, and they laugh it and she starts to hug, we end it there and we realize that the faux friendship of Steve and Miranda begins. Now we get into the metaphors, which is the only arc that Charlotte has in this entire episode. Okay. She doesn't have a really storyline because, her problem is she's running through Central Park, which I always love, and that she runs into a horse that reminds her of one of the horses that she had as a child when she was doing the equestrian, horse riding. And she fell off of it and broke a collarbone as Carrie's narrating, and she's staring at the horse. And that, immediately after that, her father sold the horse and she's never been on one again. Now, I couldn't connect with this at all because number one, I don't have a horse. I don't have a dad that would provide me a horse. I would never, I have been on the horses in Central Park. There is a riding club. And I've done that twice and I fell off twice and that was enough for me, but they're beautiful, beautiful animals. Beautiful. I cannot tell you how amazing it is to feel to be next to them. There's just something glorious about them. I can't explain it. You have to be around them to understand. If I know they smell and all that stuff, but no, when you see one and you're next to them and their presence is just grand. But not enough for me to try to keep going. I would have loved to, but I'm afraid of breaking bones. I am. I really am. Thankfully, knock on flesh, I have not done so yet. I'm still alive, people. So as I've watched this so many times, it was not until this time that I realized that her whole purpose was not to really have a storyline, but to give us the metaphors that happen in the rest of the group. Okay. So, as she's staring at her horse, the next scene we have is now, as Carrie narrates, Samantha meets her own stallion. And as she's walking out of, I presume, her apartment building, totally dressed in red, fabulous looking, she meets Mr. Stallion. I think that's what she calls him. And their eyes lock, and she stops off in front of one of the window stores, Prada, I believe, and he comes after her, and they're flirting with each other as he's like, you look amazing, and she really does. I come from a place where you always want what you don't have. I can never go out in the street without wearing a bra, and I find it fascinating that women that actually can do that and get away with it. Never have, never will, never can. It's just a reality. I've been blessed with my chest since I was 14 years old, and it was never that I could go out and just spring around and not wear a bra. Just couldn't. So looking at her and realizing the extent of no underwear that she's wearing practically, and she looks stunning, I was pretty impressed by that. And as they're flirting, she calls him Mr. Cocky, not Stallion, Mr. Cocky. He says, let me give you my number. And she's flirting back. She goes, I don't know if I want it, which was kind of a shock because Samantha doesn't normally play coy. Not that I could recall. When she sees something, she wants it, she takes it, she gets it, it's done. She takes the number and she says, okay. He says, do me a favor, call. Okay. Relatively handsome man. I'm not going to say he wasn't. He's better looking than Big. I'll tell you that much. I didn't like the way Big looked. It's no reference to the actor. I just didn't think. Again, I've said this before. I like tall, dark, and handsome, but not everyone that's tall, dark is handsome. So now we're getting into why this is important with the whole reference to Charlotte, because as she noted, Charlotte has to confront her fears about getting back on the horse. Samantha has to deal with the fact that she has a Mr. Cocky, okay? And that's really, and what happens with Carrie. So Carrie is in her closet. She realizes that she has an old dress, and it goes back into her mind. Why do we keep old dresses and we throw away our boyfriend? So she decides to call Big for the first time after the last time she saw him, which was at the Hamptons hoedown. When he says that, he's with Natasha, the idiot stick figure with no soul. So as Natasha picks up, she narrates she didn't expect the idiot stick figure with no soul to pick up, but then she realizes that he has caller ID, so she needs to call him back. As he picks up the phone, he asks, were you the one that called? She stumbles through, trying to explain why she hung up, and it's all BS. Excuse me. I am getting over a slight cold. Kind of knocked me out a little bit. Just a little bit. That's why this is a little late too. I wasn't feeling too well with the snow and everything. So my apologies for coughing on screen. I hate coughing, sneezing and all that, but I'm not cutting it out. Sorry, deal with it. It's life. So as they're speaking, if you were new to this in 1999, you didn't realize what was going to be happening. Now that we have gone through this so many times and we know how it inevitably ends, this scene was extremely fresh cut for me. Even when I watch it now, I can go back to that feeling of 1999 when I was like, okay, he's talking to her, but why? If he's supposed to be happy with Natasha, why is he even entertaining this conversation with Carrie? I couldn't fathom what the hell was going on here. And she's trying to say, we don't have to be enemies. We could be friends. And hey, why don't we do a lunch? He goes, yeah, let's do a lunch. And I was completely perplexed. I'm like, why do you want to do a lunch with Carrie? First of all, you broke you broke up with her. You broke her heart. And now you want to have a lunch when you're supposed to be with Natasha, the 25-year-old that you're supposed to be hanging out with? I smelled something fishy, but I couldn't understand. And I'm looking at it from a girl's perspective. I was trying to understand from a male's perspective, what does he get out of being friends with Carrie at this level that they do a lunch? Well, we're at the lunch. And as Carrie narrates, she goes to the maitre d' and, she's so proud that she used to do the reservations under his name. And this is him, us, the writer's trying to hide the name again. Because she's friends now, she puts it under Bradshaw. And as the maitre d' says, her party's here, we have a very nervous Mr. Big, greeting her, over talking, very nervous. She realizes he's nervous. They're going up the stairs. He trips and she feels empowered. Like she feels as if she got him. You know, he's nervous. He wants to see her. And I'm thinking, why? Then, but I know now why. One of the things that struck me is that, and maybe I'm making too much of this, is that she says, "Hey, you look great." And then he replies, "You do as well." Normally, I'm just saying that it's kind of weird to me that the first thing out of his mouth wouldn't be, "Hey, you look great." To me, that was a red flag even back then. I was like, all right, let's play along. As they pretend to order really relatively non-alcoholic drinks, and then they both agree that they want alcoholic drinks. He's a Scotchman and she's a cosmopolitan. And I've only had Scotch once in my life. And my God, that thing is strong. Oof. And I'm not a Cosmo girl. I'm a martini girl, but I'm not a Cosmo. I've tried Cosmo. I don't like it. An hour later, they're laughing. She's empowered. She's feeling good. They're talking about their intimate moments, about his music and him waking up with it. And I'm like, again, why are you talking about this when you have a girlfriend? Because if if my current boyfriend goes out with my ex, I don't care. Not for lunch, not for brunch, not for drinks, not for nothing. You're overstepping it now. That should have been a red flag to Natasha. If he even told her. Because she heard so much about Carrie, I would have been like, yeah, okay, yeah. Stay away from her. Mm-hmm. So she finally says, okay, tell me about the girlfriend. Tell me about Natasha. And that's when his whole demeanor changes. He goes, are you sure? She goes, yes, that's what friends do. She still feels like she has the power, the Guatemalas. And as he tries to say two words, she cuts him off and says, no, I don't know. I can't handle it. Let's make a pact that we don't talk about each other's relationship unless it's really serious. And again, his demeanor changes even worse. And he looks at her. He says, Carrie, it is serious. We're engaged. And that's when it hits Carrie that she never had the power because now she has a splitting headache and she makes a scene in the restaurant. How could you be engaged? You never wanted to get married. And he's like, well, things change. And her whole world, this whole fantasy that she created in the last hour of being in this restaurant, thinking that Big was nervous because he maybe wanted to get back with her and he enjoyed her company. And she had some footing with him still, came crashing down at that moment. She is yelling at him while everyone in the restaurant is staring at him. How could you do this? You strung me along for 2 years. You didn't want to marry me. She goes off on him and he's like, Carrie, don't end it this way. And she's like, you ended this way. You go off and you marry Nijinsky or Natasha. She is still making fun of this girl's name because at this point she realizes that he didn't want to marry her and he's going to marry someone else. And as she goes off to try to run away from him, she falls and trips on the same stairs that he tripped when she thought she had the power, and she's embarrassed. I was completely shocked because then I realized it wasn't that he wanted to be with her and he wanted to see if there's still a connection. He just didn't know how to tell her what was happening and he didn't want it to get out because unfortunately he is a man that has notoriety and she would have read it in the papers or somewhere that he was engaged. And he's not stupid. Now, why he felt the need to explain this to her when he broke up, he could have just very well left it alone and let Carrie go off on her, tangent, call him upset and be like, well, sorry, we're not really friends, so I didn't feel obligated to tell you anything. But the reason that he needed to tell her before anybody else found out still baffles me to this day. And if you're a man and you've ever been in this position, explain this to me. If you're really not that into her anymore and you're about to get married, what does it matter if this woman has a heart attack or not? You're living your life, right? She can do whatever she wants with that information. You're planning your marriage and your wedding and your life with someone else. You've made that conscious decision. So I couldn't understand what was going on with that, but let's run with it. Okay. So she's destroyed. Okay. Let's get into how this ties into now Charlotte again. She is at one of the horse stables that I believe does not exist anymore in Manhattan. I remember the stable. I remember walking past it. I believe it was in the Upper West Side. I have to double check that. I don't believe it exists anymore, but it was a very popular place to go, and you go into the stable. And, one of the things that comes up is that, first of all, she's smoking around hay in a horse stable. So I don't even want to begin to talk about that because she's ridiculous. She's upset because she's wearing $300 shoes and it's in a horse stable with shit. Let's start with that. Another one. And, one of the things that Charlotte is trying to comfort her is that, listen, her horse Tabby had to be broken in. It took a while, but she had to break him in. And Carrie's point is that she broke in Mr. Big and that now Natasha gets to ride him. Why this is important, it only occurred to me after the ending of this entire episode. The rest of it in this scene was Charlotte decides that she was going to try to get back on a horse and then she can't get back on the horse and they run out of the stable. So she hasn't faced her fear of the horse. Now we go into Samantha's arc. Poor girl. It's hilarious. Thank God for Samantha's line because some of this was really intense. Samantha is in the boudoir because apparently having drinks relates to going into the boudoir for Samantha. And as she explains to Mr. Cocky that she doesn't normally pick up men in the street, it's cute when she tries to tell these things to other people that don't know her. He explains to her that he's a little nervous about getting into relations with her because he's really well endowed and she thinks that it's a great thing. She's very happy until he shows it. And he also notes that most women can't handle it. And she goes, well, I'm not most women. And I'm like, okay, we're going with this. I'm feeling it. And as he undresses and shows his well endowedness, she starts to clamper her neck. And at that moment, even then, even now, I always wondered, what the hell? Because for Samantha to be that frightened at something coming at her, curious minds still want to know. Come on. Oh, God. So as she explains to Carrie as they're walking down, the avenue, she's like, it was like a wall of flesh that was coming at me. And she didn't know if she was going to be able to handle it. She was afraid she was going to get lockjaw. And me and my girlfriends were like laughing our asses off, spitting out popcorn. We're like, if it took down Samantha, that's it. The man can't be with anybody. Come on, this is Samantha we're talking about. And one of the important things in this whole thing that I caught many times before, Carrie is like, you broke up with James because he was too small. Well, first of all, Samantha says that she's going to try again. And, Carrie's like, why? Because she's like, because I have to. I mean, hello, it's like Mount Everest. Gotta do it. And, Carrie's whole thing is that she tells her, you broke up with James because he was too small. Now you're dating Mr. Too Big. What are you doing? Are you looking for what do you like, Goldie Cox? And this is the line that got me. She goes, yes, I'm looking for Mr. Just Right. And immediately, you know who I thought about, right? Mr. Right. She does meet him, in the next seasons. And I was just like, I don't know how this all came to play, but it's funny how she does meet Mr. Right in her own words, because he was perfect, remember? And that she misses, she can't find that happy medium. So that ties into the next scene. How does Miranda deal with her newfound friendship with, Steve, who has no ulterior motive, but just wants to be friends and shows up in the middle of the afternoon at your apartment to call you a shitty person? Well, they go out to dinner. They wind up in her bedroom because he wants his FDNY t-shirt back. Really? And she's fighting, oh, but it should stay with me. And they're tit for tatting. And as she returns the t-shirt, he says goodnight and he tries to kiss her. And then, she coyly says right here. And of course, it turns into what was the real reason behind this? Because neither one of you stopped feeling for each other and you wanted to get your groove on, baby. Okay? Because that one kiss turns into, do friends kiss here? Do friends kiss here? And all of a sudden, they're kissing all over each other and they flung each other onto the bed, which was always the intention. That last F that you never had to close it out and you still want to try it out. Period. Have I done that? Yeah, of course. We all have. Come on. So now the next scene is that it's the hour after, I guess. And, he's like, so are we still friends? And she goes, yeah, we're still friends. We're friends who have sex. Didn't we establish that that's an F buddy and that normally doesn't require any going out or knowledge of I guess we all know now that that wasn't going to turn out well. But back then I was just like, how's this going to work out again? What's going to happen? Like, what's going on here? Now, Steve is your new F buddy to the 10th power because you think that Steve was going to take, one time call and then call, dial an F. That's not going to work. But let's play along. So now we have Miranda who has established that she is going to have Steve as her special friend. Samantha is on a mission. Her mission is to climb Mount Everest. Remember, Miranda thinks women are for friendship, men are for effing. So as Mr. Cocky and her try to get on relations, she is doing everything she can to relax. And as they proceed with the act of love, she realizes that he has not even come close to Base Camp 1 for you Mount Everest fans. She freaks out and she says, whoa, this is not going to work. And he gets disappointed, of course. And she says, can we just be friends? And as Carrie narrates, this is the first time that Samantha ever had a male friend. So she can't use him for effing. She can only keep him as a friendship. How long you think that would last? Well, we never see him again. He's never brought up again. So I'm guessing the friendship went from 0 to 100 real quick. Mm-hmm. That was that point. Now we have Charlotte. Poor Charlotte. She's back at Central Park. She's back at looking at another horse. She's with a horse now. She's talking to the horse. She has decided that she's going to ride this horse once again alone without anybody else around her. She befriends it. She talks to it. She feeds it. She gets on it. And she's conquering her fear through Central Park riding the horse again because she was determined. Thank God they gave Charlotte more storyline in the seasons to come. I understand that this was a metaphor for what was going to be happening, but my God. So we've dealt with all of the other characters. Let's get back into the reason why this really is about learning what is the true reason behind you wanting to stay friends with an ex. Big calls, you know who, Carrie. To tell her what? I don't know. I'm still confused about this. She doesn't pick up. He's speaking to her an answering machine. And he's like, I didn't mean to hurt you. And then she decides to pick up and she says, I know you didn't. Really? This is manipulation. I started to get really frustrated because I'm like, dude, you know how to work her. Of course you meant to hurt her. If you didn't mean to hurt her, you wouldn't have done everything that you did right up until this point. And she's a stupid girl. I know you didn't. And, maybe one of these days, me, you, and Natasha can go out and laugh about this and go out to dinner and all this other stuff. And he's like, and I wish you all the best luck. And he's like, do you really mean that? She goes, no, but maybe one day I will. And okay. She coddles him. She's so desperate to just be that girl that is so accepting of everything. She should have never answered this phone. She should have never said, "You, I know you never meant to hurt me," and would have left it at that. What was the reasoning behind this? She's desperate because we find out why. She still needs to know why. That's the only reason. Because as she hangs up the phone, and the reason why he called is to still have her manipulated under, wrapped under his finger, because you should have not called her. You are trying to get married. She is in her, on her bed, and I'm going to say he invited her to the engagement party at the plaza. I can't fathom that it was Natasha that did it, because I wouldn't. And as she is, trying to accept the fact that now she's invited to his engagement party, which if he did it, you're an idiot. What is wrong with you? Ooh, this just pisses me off even more. Like, you cannot just be friends and be like, you know what? I messed up. I hurt you. But now, hey, now that we're friends, come to my engagement party with my 25-year-old, fiance after you've done told me everything to my face at the restaurant, at the beach. I know you're hurt. Dude, Elsa, let it go. For the love of God. You know what? I get so mad because there is such a strong sense of manipulation on his part throughout this entire series that just agitates the crap out of me. I'm sorry, but it does. And it's not the actor, and it's the writing, and men, how when men do this, people, not just men, people do this in general. It's not love. It's not love. Because there's no need for that. Okay? I need to calm down. So they're at a bar, the girls. And Carrie is like, I can't believe that my ex-boyfriend is right now 6 blocks away at the plaza at his engagement party, and I was invited. And, the girls are like, well, I can't believe he invited you. And she's like, oh, well, it's my fault because I pushed that whole friendship. And there she goes, deprecating herself. It's my fault. And, I pushed the whole friendship thing. And, and I'm like, oh, God. If nothing else, this show is still around. Please, if this is happening to you, if you are watching this for the first time, and for all the ones that are rediscovering this show or discovering this show has to stand out as a psychological review of why we as women and people, because if women do the same thing, as a cautionary tale, not as it's fun, it's funny, but it's really a cautionary tale of who we are in general and how we feel in these types of relationships that are manipulative, abusive, with agendas, because we didn't have any of this before this show. And my God, we can go into the psychology of all of this so well now because it's been out for so long. I pray that I wish I had some of this back then, because I'm telling you, the person that I was going to end up with and that my brain told me, stop it. And I went into panic attacks. And if you don't know that, I've said it in a few other episodes of seasons. I probably would have not fallen for the crap, because he was the one that was the soul crushing one that did come to my door, did propose to me after he missed me and loved me after the hell that he put me through. And my brain and body was like, danger, danger. Thank God. Thank God. Because my friends tried to tell me, but it was my brain that said, no. And I look at this and I'm like, no, no. Okay, no tears. So as they are at the bar and, she's trying to justify the fact that he invited her, she goes into the soliloquy of, why not me? Why not me? Why did I not end up with an engagement at the plaza? Whining and bitching. And, they justify this. Miranda saying, Hubble. Well, Hubble is the Robert Redford character, for those who may not know this, in the movie The Way We Were with Barbara Streisand, who is one of my ultimate favorite actresses and singers of all time. I can watch all of her movies. I can listen to, and I had most of her records. I love that high octane voice. The Celine Dion's, the Mariah Carey's, the Barbara Streisand. But Barbara Streisand was the first one for me. Like, don't mess with my Barbara. Don't mess with her. All her movies were great. I even sat through Yentl. Okay, she was my girl, and I can still watch it now. So Hubble in Miranda's rendition, as Carrie realizes that, oh, yes, and Charlotte, oh, yes, Hubble. And, poor Samantha's like, who the hell's Hubble? And, they explain who Hubble is, and she's like, I've never seen that movie, The Way We Were. And everybody's like, why? And she's like, it's a chick flick. Okay, that sounds about right. But the thing that got me is that, the way that they interpreted the movie was that Hubble couldn't be with Barbara Streisand, Robert Redford, Kathy, because she had curly hair. And, freaking Carrie's like, oh, hello, curly. I'm like, okay, we're going a completely different direction, but sure. And that he winds up marrying a simple girl with straight hair. Hello, Natasha, simple girl, because she knows exactly who Natasha is. And, they start going into, she starts saying, ladies, I figured it out. The world is made up of two women, curly Katie's and simple Natasha, straight hair. I'm like, so then they start singing the song. Can it be that it was all so simple then? And I won't bore you with the rest of it. As they go through the song, Samantha turns around and she's looking at everybody like, what in the hell am I getting myself into? They're all singing the song to a movie that I've never heard. And as Miranda goes into the most favorite part, memories like the corners of my mind, Samantha blurts out, finally, as she gets emotional, that she misses James. And poor Carrie's like, excuse me? And I was like, oh no, we're not bringing this guy back. Oh my God, please hold the line. Why? Because he was too small? Because he was less complicated? We never find out. It was just one of those momentary madness moments that, okay. Here's the issue I have. For anyone who's never seen the movie The Way We Were, okay, that is not the reason why Hubble did not stay with Barbara Streisand, Katie, because she had curly hair, okay? I'll give you the small gist of it. It was a beautiful movie. I'm actually trying to find it on streaming because I do want to watch it now that I've heard the song. She was a political activist, and he was more of a cookie cutter white guy. And they go through this series of years of being together and not being together before World War II, after World War II. They get married, they have kids. And I'm just going to keep it short. He couldn't handle how politically active she was. And it was just too much for him in the world that he wanted to live in. And they get a divorce. So, at the end of the movie, one of the things that happens is that it's years later, and she is doing one of her political activisms in front of the Plaza Hotel as he is coming out with his new wife, and they meet up because he's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in years. And he crosses the street, and, I'm going to tear up because it's a hell of a movie. And, it's one of those things where, can you stay friends with an ex? Obviously, they haven't seen each other in years, and they were married and they have a child together. And she sees the wife, and, as they're speaking, she brushes his hair to the side and she says, your wife is beautiful, Hubble. I think I messed that up, but it was something along those lines. And that's it. They end it. And then the song comes out, Memories, right? So guess what happens? We have somewhat of a replay. Carrie is walking towards the Plaza Hotel. She had no intention of going into the actual engagement, but of course, Big is out there, and Natasha is getting into the limo, and the party's over. So he crosses the street, And it's the same almost kind of storyline where she is looking at him, and this time, unlike what Barbara says, she wants to know, she has to ask the question because it will forever haunt her. Why wasn't it me? Why didn't you pick me? That pissed me off. I'm like, this whole thing was, I wanted to be picked. Had nothing to do with understanding to let go. And he's like, come on. And she's like, you got to tell me as friends, why? And he goes, well, with you, it just got so complicated. And with her, and then she does the same move that Barbara Streisand does at the end of the movie. And she brushes his hair, and he goes, your wife is beautiful, or something like that. I don't want to say wife, but your girlfriend is beautiful. And he's like, I don't get it, because obviously he's never seen the movie, or it didn't click with him that was the Hubble and Katie moment at the end of The Way We Were. And she goes, and you never will. Then she's walking out so proudly past, because where they are is the central location where all the horse and carriages that you can rent to go through Central Park. And he just looks away while, poor Natasha is wondering what the hell's going on between them. And he walks away and goes into the cab and his limo, watching her as she's walking past one of the horses from the horse and carriages. And, she narrates that maybe this goes back to the whole connection between her and Charlotte in the horse stable. Maybe, Big didn't break me. In the reference that he didn't break her in, maybe, I broke him. He couldn't break me at all. And that, I need to find someone that would allow me to run as free and wild as I want to, as they make this dramatic comparison between her and the horse and her hair. And it was supposed to be a poignant moment. And for the most part, in 1999, it was, right? And I really thought, just like everyone else and my friends, I'm like, okay, he's off. He's getting married. She got her answer. She had her Hubble, The Way We Were rendition. We're going to move on. Why does this break into it not being so poignant? Because at the end of the day, we go into the rest of the seasons and the movies and the And Just Like Crap, and we all realize that I cannot explain why Mr. Big cannot let her go. What value did she bring to him? We never really get to know anything about Natasha. We just know that she's the idiot stick figure with no soul that she constantly compares herself to, even through the reboot, and they really never show the reason why he is with Natasha, other than the fact that he's not Carrie. Does it resolve all the issues of this movie and the show? And then no, it still leaves a wound. We're still left with the back and forth between her and her being a friend to him. And then now we go into season 3 and how this all culminates into what happened to everyone. When you allow yourself to believe that you can be friends with an ex and just have sex. Your obsession with wanting to get married leads you down a very dark path, Charlotte. And when you try to let go and you grab onto someone else that seemingly looks good, wants to give you the entire world, but your friendship with your ex kills it for you. Carrie. That's it, my people. I tried not to cry, and I think I did a successful job. Tell me if you like this format. That will be my epilogue. My outro right now is get ready, because the year 2000 is coming, and I'm going through the script right now to bring you everything that happened when this series opened up and when we went over the threshold for New Year's. It will be up for the New Year's week. So this will be my somewhat Christmas video. I am going to bring you another video that has nothing to do with this. So I hope you guys watch it. I'm going to try to do 3 shorter videos about other topics that I'm interested in that I hope you guys do enjoy. One of them will be my Christmas holiday favorites, and a couple of other current events that are happening that I think you guys pretty much, if you looked at my community posts, things that I feel about. I try not to get too political because I don't want to, and I'm not going to be political, but I am going to talk about certain things that has happened that has been Really sad. And I don't want to bring too much sadness, but we need to bring awareness. So tell me how you felt about this. Tell me if you felt the same way, that this was going to be the end of her and Big, and that we were going to pass the threshold in 1999. And if you're watching now, well, you pretty much know it's not. Because if you're starting to watch now, it's because you know what has happened since then. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you all. Thank you for the comments, the sharing, the hypes, everything. And I hope that you have a beautiful, blessed day, week, month, holiday season. And for everyone that I reach from here to around the world, thank you. Goodbye.